Before talking about Casualties of War, it is worth talking about its director, since the man has made many films that deserve recognition. Brian De Palma is best known for films such as Carrie, Scarface, The Untouchables, and the first Mission Impossible. While these are all great movies in their own right, De Palma has written and directed many other movies that are not as famous, but also very much worth seeing. There is no reason why Scarface should be better known and more celebrated than films such as Blowout, Dress to Kill, or Sisters. Throughout his career, De Palma has consistently made films that employ visual storytelling and are incredibly well shot and consistently entertaining. Many of De Palma's films have a certain grotesque humour and quirkiness to them. He is not known for being politically correct. De Palma, much like Italian director Argento or Alfred Hitchcock, has been criticised for his portrayals of women, accused of misogyny and even of hating women. This is one reason why Casualties of War is an interesting film in the canon of films by De Palma. The film happens to be an unrelenting and mature essay on rape and rape culture, as well as PTSD and what soldiers may be driven to do during war. Casualties of War came out at the same time as Platoon and Full Metal Jacket and may have been overshadowed by its contemporaries. The film, much like the two films I've just mentioned, is set during the Vietnam War and is loosely based on actual events. Michael J. Fox plays a private named Max who is a part of a squad who seem to be losing their minds during the war. At the start of the film, a much-beloved private is suddenly killed, leaving the rest of his squad angry and seeking revenge.
Over here. Yeah, so what's wrong with that?
What I'm saying is these fucking gooks are shit, man! They're lowlifes!
Every bug-eyed motherfucker in that film, man. Every man, woman, and child knew about them fucking mortars, man. And they knew about the snipers, too, and they just let them zap around. They're slugs, man. They're roaches.
What happens next is both horrifying and all too plausible. The squad leader, Tony Meserve, played beautifully by Sean Penn, decides to capture a Vietnamese woman and drag her along for the expedition.
All right. Now, we're leaving the full hour early because at this point, we're going to detour 2,000 meters to the south, to the villa near Han. Because what we're going to do is requisition ourselves a girl. Little portable R&R. It'll break up the boredom, keep up morale.
Tony Meserve is a character who has completely lost his mind, and the soldiers go along with his orders with one exception. Max cannot believe what his squad mates are doing. This is where the drama of the film begins. Max having the courage to stand up to his squad mates.
We ain't supposed to be doing this.
Don't fuck with me. You're taking your turn in here.
No, I ain't raping nobody.
I come after you. Maybe when I'm done humping her, I'm gonna come hump you. Were you gonna take an attack posture with me?
Max's actions are made even more courageous, since by going against his sergeant and his squad, he stands to lose everything.
Somebody stumbles, they don't mean to shoot you, they're sorry. Friendly fucking casualty. I mean, a body bag's a body bag, right? Who's counting?
The soldiers, with the exception of Tony, go through with the gang rape. They then murder the woman. After this, Max is faced with a very tough decision. Does he forget about the event, as so many of his superiors are encouraging him to do? Or does he, at great personal risk, report the incident to the authorities?
These men fucked up good. But you bringing formal charges against them? Is that going to help that poor girl one little bit?
Maybe if you had been there, sir. Maybe if you had heard her screaming, you'd feel...
You don't tell me shit about screaming, boy! I've heard a lot of fucking screaming in this country. Most of it's come from wounded American boys.
As I've probably made clear, this is not a film that pulls any punches, and it tackles very difficult, controversial, and even unpopular questions. How responsible are these soldiers for their actions during such a stressful time and place? Could we forgive Max if he didn't stand up for what he believed in? And, most challenging of all, what would you have done in Max's situation? What would any of us have done? While the film does not let the troops off for what they did, it also doesn't completely dehumanize them. Well, with one exception.
Hey, man, what happens in the field stays in the field, man. You know that. Everybody knows that.
The film, like the character Max, holds these men completely accountable for their actions. Tony Meserve is a character who has clearly been through a lot and is heavily suffering what we now call PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
Well, sir, I've seen a lot of killing. Which it's our duty to do. Because it's kill or be killed. Sometimes you hate the enemy so badly. About 2 ops back, Operation Turner, we ran into a hooch that had been burned down. Some Vietnamese were carrying children out of a bunker in the hooch. They suffered from smoke inhalation. I gave one small child mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Interestingly, another private named Diaz had the same ideals as Max, but went through with the gang rape anyway because he didn't have the courage to stand up to his fellow officers.
Oh man, I ain't gonna rape nobody. Erickson, you gotta back me up. I'll back you. Swear it.
What are you looking at Diaz for? Diaz is with the program. You got a problem with this Diaz? Huh?
Hell no, Sarge.
Okay.
You're saying then, PFC, you involved yourself in rape to avoid being ridiculed.
The film presents a complex essay on men being driven to do something awful and unforgivable by the situation around them, and the film does not let them off with their actions either. The fact that the troops who committed the crime are not completely dehumanized is what makes this film very ballsy. It would have been much easier to make a clear-cut, the men who did this are monsters narrative, but instead it's a case of the men made insane by their situation and doing something unforgivable. The scariest part about this narrative is how difficult it was for Max to go through with his conviction of his fellow soldiers. Every step of the way, Max was met with resistance from his fellow soldiers' group mentality, to his superiors attempting very firmly to sweep the event under the rug, to Max almost getting killed by his fellow soldiers, or fragged as I believe it's called. In fact, the path of least resistance would have been for Max to forget about the entire event, and it took immense strength for him to stand up and say, "This is wrong." By implication, the film said that things like this probably happen all the time and go unreported. De Palma has often been accused of being misogynistic and even of hating women. This film, being a strong indictment of rape and rape culture, certainly says otherwise.